Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
I think we are at a record for the quickest that we have ever started an episode from the time that we initiated our Zoom call, but that's only because we literally just had dinner together.
Yeah.
Literally left the restaurant, came home, logged on to Zoom. So,
And it still took us 11 minutes to start
true,
the episode, but
true.
better than the normally 30 to 40.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, we can always, speaking of, already on a side tangent here, that's kind of redundant. Anyway, I so I saw this TikTok that was like, oh, like me and my bestie of like 20 years trying to come up with new things to talk about or whatever. And it was like joking that basically they've run out of stuff to say. And I'm like, I've never experienced that. We always find plenty of things to say.
I
I don't think we
know.
will ever run out of conversation topics.
Yeah, it's true. There's always something.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just the same thing
Oh, yeah. I
every
mean, it can
month.
definitely, I mean, we've definitely had the same conversations many times, but we are happy having the same conversation again. We
Yeah.
don't have to.
We've had new thoughts since the last time, so
Exactly. Sometimes you guys gotta rehash the things that have come up, or as you get in your 30s, you forget shit. So then you forget you already, one of you forgets you had the conversation, the other remembers, and like, well, we'll just go through with it. It's fine. But
yeah. That's your getting into your 30s. It's you see your friends and you tell them the same stories every time.
yes. Or you forget who you've told the story to, and then you think that you told it to this person and not this person, but then you're like, oh no, I actually told it to you already. But I'm gonna tell you again, apparently, because
That happened to me a few weeks ago. It was at kickball. I told a story before kickball started, and then I went to tell a story after kickball ended, and I was like, I told you this story approximately 55 minutes ago. So, oops.
I mean, sometimes I will be like about to say something, and then I don't know, I get distracted, and then I'm sitting there and I'm like, did I say the thing that I was about to say? And I'm sitting there like, I don't want to say it again and be like,
Mm-hmm.
you literally said that 60 seconds ago. That happened tonight. I literally forgot it already. There was something in the car that I was like, oh, I'm going to say this. And then I didn't say it. And then I was like, but did I already say this? And then I said it. And I'm like, did I say this? And Andrew's like, no. And
Yeah. It's
that was the most Jackal
always that
story I've
I
ever told.
say it. It's always like with Kevin that I say it and he was like, you just said that. Or then I will just be like, make an additional comment and he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, did I not just say this? And he's like, no. So it's always like never, like I'm never
The
like, did I
right
say
way.
this? And then he's like, no, like it's just, or maybe it is the right way a lot of times. And I just only pick
Yeah.
up on the times he calls me out for repeating it.
Or you're like, I'm starting in the middle of this story that I started in my head, but apparently did not say out loud. And then everyone's confused. And you're like, nope, I just said that internally. Whoops.
Yeah, or that's like Kevin where he'll get confused, but he'll never ask for clarification. So like here's like kind of a long-winded, non-important story. So I leave for the beach soon, and today my nails chipped when they should not have chipped. And
Hmm.
I was like, oh well, originally I was like, Kevin, let's like after work go. Like I'm gonna go and like get my nail fixed or whatever, and then you can drop me
Yeah.
off and run the errands we need to do, then pick me back up. Then
Yep.
I forgot that my mom wanted to get ice cream. So I was like, never mind, I'm going to go Friday. And then we were like going on and on. And like, I was sitting there about like 15 minutes before I left. And I was like, well, I'm about to go get ice cream. And he was like, today? And I was like, yes, that's why I'm not going to the nail salon. He was like,
Oh my
I thought you
gosh.
meant Friday. And I was like, you didn't think it was weird when I like said this sentence? He was like, yeah, I was confused, but
He's like,
he
I
just
wasn't
went
gonna ask
along
any
with it.
questions though. Like I was just gonna let it happen and it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's
I also swear that men just have like this complete inability to comprehend plans or like process
mm-hmm.
plans, and they just have like no idea what's happening. Or my husband would be like, oh, like um I'd be like, oh, we're doing this today. And he was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And I'm like, I told you that 500 times and you still somehow could not remember that that was
Yeah.
the plan. I don't know. It must be because we just plan the things and then they don't have to worry about it. So they just show up
I know.
and
I try so hard to like tell Kevin like over and over and like, here's this, here's that,
mm-hmm.
anything going on. And it just, we always end up back here bitching about them on the podcast they'll never listen to.
Exactly. I mean, this is just our therapy session at this point. We just got to get the stuff out there into the entire world to hear, but, not to the people that it affects. I'm kind of rambling at this point because Courtney said she was going to tell a long-winded story, so I used that opportunity to go ahead and put the clear note on my nails because I was painting them before we got started. So that way I don't have to wait until Courtney starts talking, which is halfway through the episode. But I'm done now, so I managed to stretch that out, and let's go ahead.
A Courtney long-winded story is not a Jacqueline long-winded story. So you should have known you had less time. But you had more time because we have an update that you're forgetting about.
Whoops.
So our update is a few months ago, I think at this point, we talked about the actor Julian Sands, who had gone missing while on a hike. So at the time of this recording is the Saturday before, which is the 24th of June. He was officially found and he had died, unfortunately, but been a long time without finding him. So that was kind of probably where we all thought that might be going, but
yeah, you definitely assumed at this point, but of course you can always hold out hope, but it had been like 6 months. So at that point it's pretty much a given. And, we can just hope that it was sooner rather than later and not that he was, alone and suffering for a long time.
A long time, yeah.
So our sources for today are an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, Mystery at Mile Marker 45, as well as an article from ScreenRant.com and PressOfAtlanticCity.com. And we do want to give a suicide trigger warning at the top of this episode. So if that is something that you would prefer not to listen to, maybe just skip through to the perk of the week if you want to hear some good things, or we'll see you next week, whatever you need. 18-year-old Tiffany Valiante was last seen on an outdoor camera walking away 1 minute before her parents came outside. So where did Tiffany go? Unfortunately, the family would make a gruesome discovery just a few hours later. Diane and Stephen Valiante met in 1989. Diane already had 2 daughters, Jessica and Crystal, and they had Tiffany in 1997. She was a surprise. They hadn't planned to get pregnant, but they were excited and happy to have her. Tiffany was very energetic and personable. She actually got a scholarship to play volleyball and was going to be a middle starter as a freshman. And she was 6'2", so she's a very tall gal. She had very big goals. She just loved life and was just so full of life. On July 12th, 2015, in Mays Landing, New Jersey, where they lived, they had gone to a graduation party across the street for her cousin. So they were there for a few hours, and Tiffany was having fun playing volleyball, and she left the party around 9:15 p.m. because she did have some friends coming over. So around that time, Diane gets a call from one of Tiffany's friends asking her to come back over to the house. So she told Stephen that she was running back over to the house, and Stephen went with her. They walked up the road between the 2 houses, and the friend got out of the car and was yelling, and she accused Tiffany of using her credit card without her knowledge. Tiffany did deny it, but then after the friend left, Tiffany did confess to Diane that she had used the credit card. Diane asked her why she would do that and told her she was going to tell Stephen, and she went into the house, and by the time they walked back out, Tiffany was gone. They looked all around the houses, there were a lot of cars driving by up and down the road, but no one had seen anything. And if Tiffany had walked, Diane believed that someone would have seen her. Again, she was 6'2", she's very tall. There were a lot of people out and about that night, so somebody would have seen her just walking down the street. So they're looking behind the houses, everywhere they can. And she was scared of the dark, so they didn't think that she would have walked too far. And everyone was just calling her, texting her, trying to get a hold of her. So while walking up and down the road, Stephen looked down and saw Tiffany's phone in the grass. So it was about 5 to 8 feet off the side of the road in front of the house. And Stephen doesn't believe that she would have just left her phone like that. Again, it is 2015, so we're all attached to our phones 24/7 at that point, especially a teenager. You don't expect her to just leave it and walk away.
Especially if you're scared of the dark too. You're not going to go into the dark without your phone in addition to that.
Exactly. So once they found the phone, obviously they were very worried, but then they remembered that they have a deer camera in the woods near their house. So they check the camera and they do see Tiffany at 9:28 p.m. And Diane and Stephen walked out with their dog Tucker at 9:29 p.m. So she literally disappeared literally within 1 minute of them coming right back outside. So Tiffany was wearing a black shirt, white jean shorts, and flat shoes. She had her hair up in a messy bun with a white headband. So Tiffany's uncle Michael was called to help look, and he went to Tiffany's grandmother's house. It was about half a mile from their house, so they thought it was possible that she had walked there, but she was not there. So they started driving down different places, and there was still no sign of her. So it's midnight now with still no sign of Tiffany, and Michael decided to drive down Pomona Road, which crosses at railroad tracks. There is a roadway alongside the tracks, which is like an access road for transit. So when they get there, there are multiple cops there, and the police officer said someone was hit there, possibly a female. So this section was technically the New Jersey transit jurisdiction. So there was a transit police officer there. Michael asked if they had seen someone matching Tiffany's description, and the officer said no, but they did have somebody who had been hit by the train. So of course Michael is like hoping it's not her, but they're like concerned at this point that it could be. So they asked Michael if he could identify her, and they showed him the body, and he did confirm that it was Tiffany. He said the state that she was in was just really horrific. Police then went to the Valente's house around 2:30 a.m. to tell Stephen and Diane. Stephen wanted to go down there, but Michael encouraged him not to because he didn't think he could handle seeing the scene. I mean, obviously, like, your daughter's hit by a train. Like, that's going to be extremely traumatic to see.
Yeah, and Michael in the episode just kept being like, it is something no human should ever have to see, no matter who it was. Like, it was just really bad.
Yeah. And on July 13th, the newspapers were already claiming that Tiffany died by suicide. The article said that she stood on the tracks and didn't move. And this was less than 24 hours after her death. So, like, that's a pretty quick conclusion to the cause of death there. But Diane says that she was not depressed. She was very happy. She was making plans for college, making plans with her friends for the upcoming weeks. And she did have plans with her friends to play softball later in the week. Again, Tiffany was just like ready for college, ready to achieve her dreams. And the Valentes were convinced that she did not die by suicide, and they wanted to try and fight to get the real answers. So they hired Paul D'Amato. He has been a trial lawyer for 46 years, and most of his cases have involved representing victims. When he first met Stephen and Diane, he said they were so broken and upset. He's like, I just have to take the case. Like, they're just destroyed. I have to do something for this family. So he decided that he would get the records from the New Jersey Transit to show it to them. And like, he honestly figured like he would just show them the facts and like it would say that she died by suicide, but he's like, at least I can give them some closure to be like, yes, this is what happened, but that's not what he found. So according to Paul, this is what we know about the night Tiffany was killed. On July 12th, New Jersey Transit train number 4693 left Philadelphia at 9:50 p.m., heading east to Atlantic City. There were about 60 passengers and crew on board. The train had just passed under the bridge at Tilton Road in Galloway Township and was headed towards the crossing at Genoa Avenue. So it was 11:12 p.m. at mile marker 45 on a very dark stretch of track where Tiffany was hit by the train. When the train was examined later, it showed that the impact was specifically on the lower left side of the train close to the track. There were 2 engineers on board the train, a senior engineer and a student engineer, and that night they both signed a report saying that Tiffany dove in front of the train. But the problem is, 6 days later, when the senior engineer was put under oath, he said he was talking to the conductor and he never saw Tiffany. He said his back was turned. So again, now he's telling a completely different story from what he said that night. And the student engineer was also asked when he first saw the trespasser, and he said that he didn't see her until he was on top of her. 10 days later, under oath, he says that he saw something when he was like half a mile away. He also saw something when they were a quarter of a mile away, and then he sees a person jump out of the woods onto the tracks. So in the end, the student engineer was the only witness, and he is now given 2 different versions of what happened. So who knows if he really saw her jump onto the tracks or not. And the other engineer definitely did not, as he later admitted. So to this day, the New Jersey Transit Police Department stands by the inconsistent, contradictory statements given by the student engineer. So Louise Hausman worked in the Atlantic County Medical Examiner's office, and she was the senior investigator for 20 years, and she had been to several thousand scenes. She was very concerned with the statements given by both engineers because a great deal of weight was given to the information they provided at the scene, which turned out not to be correct. So all trains have a black box that records everything that happens, like with the engine as it's going along. It gives the speed of the train, when brakes are used, when the horn is rung, if the headlights are on, and it also gives the distance it has traveled. It's like very straightforward, like this is exactly what is happening with this train. And according to the black box, from the time the engineer sounded the horn, struck Tiffany, and applied the emergency brake, it took a total of 4.1 seconds. The train is traveling 80 miles an hour, so is it even possible that he could have seen her jumping in front of the train? Like, at that speed and that quickly, like, could you have even seen something, or would it just be a flash? Like,
I mean, just imagine you're traveling late at night down the interstate. Your lights are on, but it's kind of a dark interstate. You think you see something and you're going 80 miles per hour. You don't know what you saw. And you're like,
yeah,
what was that? Like, I do that all the time when I'm driving and I'm like, did I just see a dead body? I don't know. Or you see something where
yeah,
you're just like, was that a dog? Like, what was that? And then you're
yeah,
already past it. So it's just like, how could you even
exactly.
know confidently what you saw?
Yeah. So Louise believes that the student engineer was likely in shock and probably wouldn't be able to describe exactly what happened. In the transcript of his statement, it's like sort of rambling, a lot of like, I'm not sure's and I don't know's, and he isn't fully confident in what he saw, which again, like Courtney said, like makes sense because you're going so fast, it happens in a split second. How could you be able to describe exactly what happened? Like, I don't know. All of a sudden she was there. I don't know how she got there. And it is possible, unfortunately, that what he saw was her body parts flying in different directions because the force of the train did dismember her. It is possible that she didn't jump and was already dead on the tracks, like that he didn't see her coming onto the tracks, but he saw the movement of her body parts afterward. So Jim Bridenstall is a private detective who has worked for 45 years in police work and private detective work, and Paul D'Amato called him and asked him to be a part of this case. So the train strike is variously recorded as sometime a little after 11 at milepost 45. It's really dark out there, and it seems odd that she would walk so far to jump out in front of a train. If she had intended to die by suicide, like why would she go so far? This was about 2.6 miles from her home. And Louise was very surprised when she saw where she was struck. It was a mile from the closest intersection into the woods, so like way out here. It was very dark. There's no light. We know that she didn't have a flashlight or her phone because her phone was found back at the house. And Louise said that she just got a really bad feeling once she saw the conditions. So the largest agency investigating Tiffany's death was the transit system. And New Jersey Transit is one of America's largest transit operators. It runs commuter trains and has a significant sized police force. However, they are obviously not experts on homicide investigations. Like, that's not really what you do. That's not
Mm-mm.
the job of the transit police. Like, it seems,
Yeah.
I get you have jurisdictions, but it just seems absurd that that would just automatically be theirs. So the first thing you should do in an investigation, even if you believe it's a death by suicide, is to make sure that they were not a victim of foul play. And there's no indication that that was ever done. The whole area where the event took place was not treated as a crime scene. People like walked all over it. It had not been roped off appropriately, just automatically assumed a suicide with no further investigation.
Yeah. And it's like, we see that a lot. It's like, even if you come in and you think it is cut and dry, you're supposed to always investigate and not jump to
Mm-hmm.
any conclusions because you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So Tiffany was hit by the train on July 12th, and her death certificate was issued on July 17th, saying manner of death was death by suicide. So that is very early in the investigation to be officially determining the manner of death. I mean, that's 5 days later. Like, that's quick.
Yeah, that's unheard of.
And it was also published in the papers The next day, on the 13th, so again, just jumping to conclusions, a full autopsy was never conducted, and no rape kit was ever taken or DNA tested. And in her toxicology report, no alcohol or drugs were detected in her system, which is pretty significant if you're saying she walked all this distance and then got the courage to jump in front of a train. Like,
So I'm gonna be honest, I have not read the rest of this episode, so I don't really know what's coming. But one thing that pops into my head though is like this is a very I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but like an aggressive way to die by suicide for a teenager and a female. You know what I mean? Like this isn't a typical manner for a female or a teenager to die by suicide. Like this seems
and
pretty
especially a
intense.
sober one.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So Louise believes after the toxicology report that the manner of death should have been changed to unclassified, just because it's like there's no way that she's like necessarily have anything in her system that could cause her to be acting so irrational. Obviously people can have like mental health breaks and stuff like that, but like just these conditions, she's like, I think it should have been changed just to unclassified, that we're just not sure.
Yeah.
She believes they jumped to manner of death too quickly. And when you put the manner of death as death by suicide, it immediately closes the case. So that closes it, confirmed. Unclassified, at least, is allowing it to be like reopened or relooked at. And you should never classify it as death by suicide unless you're like 100% sure, because it closes it like completely. And the family was never interviewed about Tiffany and whether she was depressed or showed signs of being suicidal. And Tiffany's friends were never interviewed as well before manner of death was determined. So they didn't even ask around. Like, they honestly probably don't even know about the friend yelling at her about the credit card or what was happening or anything. Like, they are just saying like, girl hit by train, it's suicide. Like,
and that's another thing. Obviously, if someone is depressed, you can't automatically assume that they died by suicide. But like, you don't even know if she was depressed. Like, you don't even have that information. And by all accounts from her family and friends, like she was not, and she was very happy. And that doesn't mean that people can't hide it and die by suicide when you don't expect it. But again, it doesn't add up, especially if they didn't even have that information to make that decision or conclusion.
Yeah. So Tiffany's remains were cremated, so it is impossible to do further testing now. The detective also wrote that no shoes were found at the scene. So when they found her, all she had on was a sports bra and black underwear. So she walks all this way, takes off her shoes, her shirt, her shorts, her headband, and the medical examiner doesn't question it at all.
Okay.
And she's completely sober. Again, it's not like she's,
Yeah. My first thought with the shoes was like, could the force, if her legs were dismembered, like could the shoes have also come off? But then the rest of the clothing, it's like, no, that's not how that works.
The shoes will come up and it makes it even crazier and more
great.
Questionable.
I'll wait. I'll listen.
No, you're good. No, up until this point, until I hear the next information, I could argue either side. But there's a piece of this that makes me very questionable. So
okay, I'm ready.
Also, looking through Tiffany's text messages, there didn't seem to be anything suspicious there as well. Like, looking back through it, she had recently broken up with her girlfriend, but it seemed amicable. Diane said she knew about the girlfriend and agreed the breakup seemed mutual. Louise says in the messages, like, it didn't seem to be like any hostility between them. And it seemed like Tiffany had actually already started a new relationship. And she'd even tweeted the day before she died about how she was content with life. So Tiffany's uncle went to the site to clean up what the New Jersey Transit had left. He said he didn't want Stephen and Diane to see any of that, and they actually found various pieces of her skull, bones that were just left behind. They found one of her bracelets, and they also found bloody rubber gloves, which was interesting. But, I mean, they couldn't do anything with it because of chain of custody at this point, too. Like, who knows what they're there for?
Yeah, but like, you would think every body part would be accounted for. Especially like if he found it that easily. It's not like it was hidden in
they were just like
walking
down because they were like, because the uncle was like, they cannot see this. I cannot let them come out here and be finding this. And they
Yeah.
found all of this, just two people with no experience.
Wow.
But again, they never found her shoes, her headband, or any more of her clothes. In regards to everything left behind, there was also a piece of evidence that could have been really crucial in this case. So an axe that was covered with like red markings was found near the site where Tiffany's body was found. So they were like, okay, maybe these red markings are like Tiffany's blood and we can like prove something here. But the axe somehow went missing while in storage, so it couldn't be tested. So they could not
Oh,
tie the axe to Tiffany's death or just any other unrelated crime.
wow.
So 3 weeks after Tiffany's death, the family had walked down Tilton Road multiple times looking for anything since her clothes were still missing. And Diane was actually able to find Tiffany's shoes. About 6 feet away, she also found like her white headband, like from the shoes. But they were found 1.7 miles away from where Tiffany was struck.
Yeah, they're not
So,
going to travel that far.
no. And like it kind of does look like it. And like her mom was saying, like the way they were placed, it like she just like stepped out of her shoes. Like they were just kind of
Hmm.
sitting there. Like she just
Yeah.
taken her shoes off. Um,
Lord.
so New Jersey Transit came and took pictures of the shoes and like took the shoes, but they didn't hear anything else, of course. And they were never sent out for any type of testing. 5 years after Tiffany was killed, the family actually had to pay to get these items tested for DNA.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And 5 years later, having to pay for it themselves. But the chain of custody had been broken, and so it wasn't even useful. And then after the family found the headband and the shoes, about 15 of them got together and searched the woods for like the rest of her missing clothes. But her shorts are still missing. They didn't specifically say about the shirt or not, but like pieces of clothing are still missing. So if Tiffany died by suicide, why would you take your shoes off and then walk an additional 1.7 miles to the train tracks at night? And the path she would have taken to mile marker 45 is a gravel road. So it's filled with sharp rocks, with edges, probably glass, probably, I mean, you've seen train tracks, there's shit all over them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at photos of Tiffany's feet, especially her right foot, there's no markings whatsoever you would expect to see if someone had been walking like with bare feet along like rocks and glass along a train track. So like basically if you're walking in gravel and stuff, you're going to get cuts and markings. Her feet look pristine. Like it does not look like there's anything. And even if she'd walked on the train tracks themselves, she'd have splinters on her feet and there were none. So,
and like they would be dirty. Like there would be
yeah.
a clear indication. Yeah.
And they weren't even really that dirty either until like walk for like basically 2 miles on the road along the train tracks and then have like clean feet just seems impossible. And a lot of people even had issues walking along this, even with their shoes on. So, like,
Yeah.
even like wearing, like, some guy was like, I was wearing work shoes and it was hard to walk along this because it's so uneven.
Yeah. And like you said, it's dark and like you can't like see what you're doing. And I was going back up to recheck the times because I was like, this is a very short time period. So she disappeared at 9:28 p.m. and was struck at 11:12. So
Yeah.
in that amount of time, she walked almost 3 miles to where she was hit by the train. Like that's, I mean, obviously, like you can walk 3 miles in less than an hour and a half, but for a total of an hour and a half for you to walk that far barefoot, like I mean, like you're not going to be walking
Naked at
super
some
fast.
point because
Yeah,
your clothes aren't
with
found.
no light, and then to make that decision to jump in front of the train when you were of the right state of mind at 9:28 p.m. Like that's, it's not like, oh, she's been missing for 10, 12 hours and then she was found and we have all these questions about like what she could have done in the meantime. Like that's not even 2 hours. Like that is less than a 2 hour time frame. It's just things don't add up.
And how do you even know when the train is coming? This is like, this isn't necessarily like a metro or, you know what I mean? It's like, it's obviously consistent, but like, how do you just know to get to this random, you're not even like near the road and you're like, hey, a train's coming. Let me, like you go into the woods. Like It's weird. Um, and again, this stretch of like train tracks is super, super dark. It's like in the woods, and the moon was not very bright that night. So she's going to be walking, no light, in very dark woods, barefoot. Like your feet are going to be scraped up. How are you even going to get to like, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. The family does not believe Tiffany walked to this site. So they don't really believe that she walked the whole way there. So if you look at the deer camera like photos, when Tiffany's walking, you can see headlights as as we said, cars were driving up and down the road. So Paul D'Amato believes that Tiffany got into a car voluntarily, and then maybe once she was in the car, someone grabbed her phone and like threw it out of the car as they pulled away. And near the impact site, there's actually a desolate building, like kind of in the woods. So they're like, you could easily take someone there and no one's going to hear you. Like, if you're wanting to like attack someone or whatever. And there is really like a great debate on how Tiffany got to the impact site. Again, like the family and Paul D'Amato convinced she got there in a car. They don't think she walked at all whatsoever. But New Jersey Transit, of course, believes differently. So they did say they tracked her whole path with a K9 unit, and the K9 unit consisted of a bloodhound and a handler. So on July 16th, which was 4 days after her death, the dog conducted the track blind, and like the handler asked to not know where Tiffany was found because he didn't want to like be led. I don't know how true him like blindly being is. So the bloodhound went along a 3.6 mile route that ended up in the general area of Tiffany's death. So again, back to that timeline, the dog is saying she walked 3.6 miles. So that's a lot for
Yeah.
an hour and a half.
Yeah. For no shoes in the dark on not like smooth, pristine ground. Yeah.
So if this is true, that would disprove the automobile theory. But Paul D'Amato like doesn't really know about the reliability of the tracking. There have been heavy rains between July 12th and July 16th. To him, he's saying that's impossible for a dog to track a scent at all. I tried to look it up, and it seems like rain doesn't like destroy a scent, but it can disperse it. So kind of like spread it some, like from where it was found. Some speculate rain can make it fresher and easier to detect. So differing opinions, but kind of the overall agreement with like canine units and dog tracking is that they're more reliable in like drugs or bombs and not tracking missing persons. Kind of like it's more like training them for a specific scent that stays the same. Or even like if you see dogs designed to detect gluten or health stuff, like things that are consistent versus being like, here, sniff this, go find it. Like it's a little not as reliable as those specific scents.
I gotcha.
So it just kind of depends who you believe there, basically. But also, I don't know, like if the windows are down, could her scent have still, and if her clothes were in different spot, I mean, her shoes were found somewhere. I don't know if the dog could still, I'm not a dog tracking expert.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point with her shoes and her clothes being spread so far around from where she walked and where she was found. Like, could that have thrown off the scent because, oh, her clothes were there, but maybe like she never personally walked there, you know?
Also, in the pictures taken by the New Jersey Transit Police and New Jersey State Medical Examiner, there's a spot where the train hit Tiffany that looks like a large pool of blood. And they believe this could imply that her body laid there and was bleeding before the train hit the body, because it's like a pool of blood in like one spot. But they never tested anything. So they can't even determine if that's Tiffany's blood or not, or just like a random spot, which why would it be on here? But still don't know. So in the medical examiner's report, when referring to Tiffany's arms and legs, it says they were cut from her torso. And it specifically says cut and not like ripped away. So a lot of people believe this means she could be laying on the tracks. So like her arms at one side of the track, her legs at the other side of the track. And that could explain how they were more cut versus ripped. And her hands and feet were also both still intact to their you know.
Hmm.
So it's kind of odd if you're standing up that it's like your arms and legs would come off perfectly. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
versus laying down and kind of getting like cut by the train versus just getting hit straight on standing up from the train.
And was it both arms and both legs? Like all four of them?
I
Did it
believe so,
specify?
yeah.
Okay.
I think because
Because
it
I'm
says
just
her
wondering
hands and
too.
feet. So I think it's like, I mean, I'm sure it was like all four were like separate, but it was like her arms were found with their hands, her feet were found like with her feet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just wondering, like, and obviously I'm not an expert in, but if you walk in front of a train, it's like, would you necessarily have all four of, like, would it hit so perfectly that all four would be dismembered in the way that it would, like you said, if you're just like laying and it goes perfectly over you versus like if you are like walking, you expect it to be kind of like different sided, like not just, you know what I mean?
I
Okay.
I also feel like this is so graphic, but if she's walking, wouldn't you kind of stick to the train? Like if you're up and the train just hits you,
Hmm.
like wouldn't you kind of like parts of you still be on that train?
I
Because
don't
with
know.
wind and
Maybe.
force going, like if you're going like this and it hits, I feel
Yeah.
like I don't know.
I'm just thinking of, so graphic side story here, but I have seen a man get hit by a car and his leg be dismembered. So like I was like sitting in a red light and this guy was drunk and wandered into the road and was hit by a car going like 55-ish miles per hour, and then like his leg like flew, but it was just the one leg. So I'm just thinking like, because like in the direction that like he was walking, like he wasn't, and obviously like a train is much different than a car, but I just wonder, just comparing those
Yeah.
two situations. I'm like, I feel like maybe like walking in front of it, it would not be like all four limbs exactly cut off, like you said, versus like
Yeah.
laying flat and it going
Because
over you.
in the episode, they said arms and legs were cut from the torso. So I assume that's all four
Yeah, that's what it
from what
sounds
I,
like. I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
So I don't know. It's odd, very
very
odd.
much so.
So Chet Atkinson was a New York, Jersey State police detective for 17 years and now works with Paul. So Paul and the family had set it up a hotline because they were just looking for any sort of just anonymous tips. And they got a call from a convenience store worker who'd heard three employees of that convenience store speaking about the Valenti case. He was interviewed under oath and had heard from these employees saying it was a homicide. So the three employees were not involved, but just kind of relaying something they'd heard. So one of the employees was at the party Tiffany was at that night and had seen her, and he referenced an argument. So the argument went on and Tiffany left. They then said she was picked up by somebody, and those people knew Tiffany. There were two females and a male in the car. They said they took her near the railroad tracks, stripped her naked, held her at gunpoint, and humiliated her. So pretty pretty big lead for what Paul and the family are looking for.
Yeah, like that's pretty specific and pretty on target with what they are suspecting happened at that point.
Yeah, so the prosecutor interviewed the three individuals that were overheard, and all three witnesses deny having said anything to the effect of what was overheard. So they're all saying, I never said that. I never talked about that. I don't know what you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And in some of the interviews at this point with people who knew her, some did allude to Tiffany not being very happy and how it wasn't obvious unless like you knew her, but they never heard reports of her saying she wanted to harm herself. Some hinted at maybe a little bit of self-harm, including like a few cuts on her arms and legs, but not like no one necessarily thought that she was necessarily suicidal, but maybe she wasn't just as
Mm-hmm.
happy as it appeared.
Yeah.
Tiffany's friends did decline to be interviewed for the Unsolved Mysteries episode, and the New Jersey Medical Examiner's Office reviewed Tiffany's case in 2018. The finding of death by suicide was upheld. So, since the Unsolved Mysteries episode was mostly based like on the family, coming from the family and Paul D'Amato and all of his employees, there are a few things that kind of got left out from the episode. So, Tiffany had also stolen from her parents a few months before her death. Also, in the months leading up to Tiffany's death, Child Protective Services had been to the Valenti home and actually showed up 3 times in 2014. So this occurred after a teacher noticed bruises on Tiffany's arm that didn't look like they were from a sports injury. So Diane did admit to hitting Tiffany in the arm during an argument. So both Diane and Tiffany entered therapy as suggested by CPS. So the therapist said they had like a quote stable relationship, but they had serious trouble communicating. So they were like they have a stable relationship. It's just like when they start fighting, like they cannot communicate whatsoever, which I feel like obviously this is a bit extreme because Diane did admit to hitting her, but that mother-daughter relationship can be kind of hard sometimes, especially
Yeah.
in those teen years. So I'm not saying
Yeah.
either was right or wrong, but it's like that can happen sometimes.
Like it could have been more understandable than it seems like at face value.
Yeah, which like Diane should have obviously never hit Tiffany or done anything like that. But the whole like trouble communicating, I feel like can just happen between mother and daughters a lot.
Yeah.
The therapist also believed Tiffany lashed out at her parents by stealing from them. And it is important to note the therapist did not believe Tiffany was depressed or suicidal. So obviously, Tiffany could have been maybe putting on a front, but like the therapist did not see any signs of that, which I feel like if she was getting to the point within a year that she would choose to die by suicide, maybe there would be something there
Yeah.
in that report too. So the families tried to petition the New Jersey Attorney General's office to reopen the case, but unfortunately, they cannot reopen until new evidence is present. So they're like, until you bring us new evidence, can't do anything. So if you have any info, please contact the law offices of Paul D'Amato at 609-926-3300 or submit a tip at unsolved.com. The reward money has doubled since the Unsolved Mysteries episode aired. So if you know anything, please reach out. Since the airing, Paul believes they've gotten some fruitful leads, but not really willing to discuss them, which makes sense. But any information you could lead to having the like case being reopened, no matter how small you think it is, please reach out. Like, especially if you just know at all what happened. Just please reach out. Again, that number is 609-926-3300 or unsolved.com. And that is the tragic death of Tiffany Valenti that is just mind-boggling, honestly.
Yeah. There are just so many things that don't make sense. I mean, her clothes being all over the place, how far she would have walked, the fact that she would have like made all of these decisions in less than a 2-hour time frame to walk away from this party where she's just gotten into a mild argument to taking off her clothes, walking barefoot. I mean, because I'm assuming by the theory that she died by suicide, no one believes that she got in any kind of car, right? Like they don't think that she could have gotten into a car and then gotten out and made that decision. Like,
yeah, the New Jersey Transit, who is ruling the death by suicide, they believe she walked the entire way and jumped in front of the train herself. That is their whole theory. And even though it's like, why are her feet not fucked up? No answers, and she's scared of the dark. Like,
yeah.
why would that be the way you choose to die by suicide? And obviously, this is more like a statistic versus every single case, but like women in general are less likely to die in ways like this.
In violent ways, yeah.
And especially 18, like she's a child. I know she's legally an adult, but she's a child. And that's a really, really extreme way. And if you're going to do it that way, why leave your phone? Why leave your shoes? Why not get in a car and drive somewhere?
Like, why are you taking your clothes off, like you said, completely sober? Like, that doesn't make sense.
And especially, I know there's this argument about stealing the credit card and telling her dad, and that's big, and that feels big to a teenager. But they'd had some of these issues before of her stealing money. So it's like, maybe you're just scared it's going to be even bigger this time. But like, in the grand scheme of things, like, it's serious, but it's not that serious where it's like, it's not like your parents are going to disown you. Like, they're going to be mad and it's going to be an argument. But even if it is, like, you're leaving for college in like
Mhm.
2 months. Like, just, I don't
Which,
know.
of course, we're also trying to rationalize suicide, which in itself is not rational. So we understand that there can be times where like the littlest thing can be
Mm-hmm.
what kind of pushes you to that decision. But typically in that moment, there's been ideation leading up to that. There have been some kind of sign, something to indicate, that it usually doesn't just come out of nowhere after such a small moment like that.
Yeah. And I truly believed like death by suicide could be an option until
Yeah.
it was the whole naked and barefoot. That and the
Hmm.
the blood on the tracks, the way her body was kind of hit and how
Yeah.
there's questions like that's not fully adding up to me. Is how her feet, when she's either walking down train tracks, which are made of wood and she'd have splinters, or walking down a gravel road with rocks, sharp rocks and glass, and how her feet are not cut up. Like
Hmm.
when she walked 1.7 miles with no shoes. Even if you're not
Yeah.
walking down that, your feet are going to be dirty. They're going to be blistered probably from walking on the
Yeah.
road. Like,
You've probably stepped on something to be cut and bleeding.
and how did she find this spot? How did she
Hmm.
find this spot so far off from a normal road and decide like this is a spot? That is what's not fully
Because
adding up to me.
I will say I did wonder throughout if it could have been an accident that she was out walking, like she's upset, she leaves,
Mm-hmm.
don't know why she would leave her phone. Maybe she dropped it. I mean, maybe she dropped
I
it.
wonder that for a while too. Yeah.
Yeah, so like maybe she's just walking, it's dark, she can't see anything. Like trains do have headlights and do make sound, but for whatever reason, she was just happened to be there and didn't get out of the way, couldn't get out of the way, didn't realize what was happening. It trains are hard to see without the headlight. So it's like, could she have like come around a bend, like something like that, where it's like she didn't realize the train was coming, but the clothes and the shoes and that just kind of throws that theory out for me. Like, I don't think that adds up.
I also wonder if maybe she did drop her phone and walk off being overwhelmed and frustrated. And even if she's scared of the dark, maybe she's walking. And is it where her shoes and headband were found that somebody random picked her up?
Yeah.
Because it's late at night, they see a girl on the road. It happens. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay, I have another idea. So she maybe loses her phone or leaves it intentionally, whichever, but she's walking and she realizes that she's lost. Is she leaving her clothes for someone to find her? You know what I mean? Like, because if she doesn't have
maybe.
anything and she's like, I'm lost, it's dark. She's like, I don't know. I mean, she's in the middle of, like, she's out in the woods, like, she's in a weird spot and she doesn't know how to, like, alert someone. Is she like, all I have is what's on my body?
So the shoes were not found in the woods, they were found off of a road,
Okay.
off of like a main road. So it's
Okay.
not like she would have left
Yeah.
those in the middle of you know what I mean? They were found just like because they were walking
Mm-hmm.
up and down this road
Okay.
and they found
Okay.
them. So at that point, it's like I could maybe see that, but most of her walking is down a road until she starts to go for
Okay.
the train
Okay.
tracks. And that's woods. There's a picture of like
Mm-hmm.
the route they believe she took.
Okay.
I can send it to you, but like those were found on the road. So I'm like, at that point, if you're lost, your family's probably looking for
Yeah,
you.
stay
Just
on the
stand
main
on the
road.
road.
Yeah.
Wait till a car comes by, which I'm like, did that happen? That she thought a car was coming by, someone was
Yeah.
helping her.
Wow. Okay, what's your thoughts on the witnesses? Do you think that they are just teenagers who are like making shit up, or they heard people who, like, how people tell stories? I mean, we heard plenty of false confessions and stuff like that. Do you think that this is just kind of like, it happens to fit what they think happened, or do you think there's something to that?
I think they either heard a rumor or maybe the truth, or maybe it was
Hmm.
just discussions. Like people, you know how
Exactly.
teenagers
Yeah.
talk, speculate. And I think maybe they were talking about it. And then once they got to the police, they were like, I don't actually know if this is true
Yeah.
and deny all of it because they're scared. Or maybe they did hear possible truth and they're
Yeah.
scared of who told them that truth. Um, I don't know. I just don't understand why like the convenience store worker would
Hmm.
make it up so much. So I feel like maybe they were just speculating,
Yeah.
shooting the shit, being like, "Oh, I heard this. I heard this."
Exactly. Like,
Like
are
you
they
know how
just
it is. Like when
Are
things
they just
happen
sharing
and like,
rumors without having any
yeah.
real, knowledge to back it up? But then, like you said, once you get to the police, it's like, oh, well, no, I actually don't. Or it's like, did they hear that at a party from someone who knew something? Because we've seen that a lot in cases, especially involving teenagers. Like, I can think of several off the top of my head where, like, the perpetrators like talked about it at parties and like said like what they did, and it doesn't come out for years and years because people are scared.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't know, I could see it going either way.
I think they were I think they were definitely discussing a rumor. It's just whether
Yeah.
that rumor was
Yeah.
true or not. But
Yeah, please.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
it's wild. Please do reach
weird.
out if you guys have, like you said, like Courtney said, any information. No matter how small you think it is, like this could be something that could break the case and lead to them discovering what really happened, whether it was suicide or not. It's like, I know the family wants closure either way. If there's more information to find out exactly why she would have done that and, how she ended up
Mm-hmm.
there. But I mean, this was so recent. I mean, this was 8 years ago. Yeah. 7 years ago.
2015, yeah.
7. Like
So
this
yeah,
week
it's just
that this is coming out.
oh yeah. I didn't even plan that.
Yeah.
That's wild. But
Yeah. This comes out like the day before the anniversary. Um, but yeah, like this was so recent that like people are still alive. People are
mm-hmm.
still in that area. Like the teenagers who were there are still, so like please do, if you guys have any information or know anything, just share what you
And I
know.
find it weird too, because part of the path she would have walked would have been down a road. Is that no one else has also come out and been like, hey, I saw her walking down that road. She's 6'2". Like
Yeah.
people are gonna be like, whoa, that's a tall girl. Even if you don't even think anything weird about it, like she's gonna stand out because she's so tall. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the walking part for me being like, has nobody reported seeing her? And I mean, because like all the case information is available to Paul D'Amato because it's a closed case. So I'm like, he would know if
Mm-hmm.
people saw her, but there was no investigating before they just ruled it. Like 5 days.
Yeah. And like it was in the newspaper the next day. So obviously people were aware of it. So if you happen to be driving down the road and like it's not like it took weeks and you're like, well, I don't remember what I was doing that night. Like
Mm-hmm.
it came out the very next day. So it's easy to be like, oh, I was driving down that road. I remembered seeing someone in that area. Like it wasn't like it took a long time.
And if you see the picture and see like 18-year-old 6'2", and you're like, oh my gosh, she died by suicide. I saw her
Mm-hmm.
walking that night. Like I was one of the last people to see her alive. Like
Yeah,
people don't remember
exactly.
that.
Wow. Okay.
It's a baffling one.
Yeah, it really
I still
is.
don't fully know, but I feel like if it is true that like she was barefoot and her feet were clean, there's no way she could have walked
Yeah,
to that spot. There's just no way.
something just doesn't add up here. Well, let us know what you guys think. And then hopefully, if you guys have information, you have already shared it with the authorities. But if you have not, please do so. That being said, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
My perk of the week is this weekend was Brewfest. So it's my third time being to Brewfest. So I think it's my third year in a row it being my perk of the week. But we go every year with my parents and it's always just nice. You get like a little tiny cup. There's like 50 plus breweries there. You get to try as much beer as you want within a 3 hour period. And it's a lot of beer, but it's a lot of fun. So it's
Who, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Who was the drunkest out of your group at the end of the day?
My dad. My dad.
I'm not surprised.
He was drinking a lot of IPAs and he's
Mm-hmm.
also tired a lot. So I think when the tired
Yep.
alcohol combo just sends you quicker, but definitely my dad. I'd probably say it was my dad, Kevin, me, then my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'd probably say that order.
Yeah. I could see
but
that. That makes sense.
yeah. So it was my dad. I think he takes it every year.
He's
But
living his best life, okay? He's just having a good old time.
yeah, I was very brokenhearted because one of my favorite breweries in Knoxville was there and they always go like balls to the wall. I was so excited and I get up there and they had an IPA and a peanut butter sour and
Aw.
I can't drink a peanut butter sour and I don't like IPAs really.
Yeah.
Like
Also, a peanut butter
But
sour just does not sound good. And I
it
like
was a
peanut
peanut butter
butter.
and jelly sour
Oh, that's
from
different.
Zool.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The jelly's different. I get why you just said peanut butter. I was thinking just
Yeah.
peanut butter sour, and I was
No,
like,
that is weird. No, it was a peanut butter and jelly
I
sour, which my
gotcha.
mom had it and said it did taste like drinking a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Oh, it's so good.
My AirPods died.
Well, I started to finish my story because, sometimes when one of us has to get up and like the other is like talking, like we just, talk through it. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, we're chatting. I can't just say what I was going to say because then you aren't going to hear it to respond to it. But yes,
Great story, Jacqueline. Yeah.
like, yeah, okay. The peanut butter and jelly sour is delicious. I'm very sorry that you could not experience that. But Andrew does not like it because he's like, it tastes too much like a peanut butter and jelly. He's like, it's like your mom said, it's literally like
Yeah.
drinking a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like they got the taste like too perfect that like it's kind of weird. But I don't know. I also really enjoy it. But
Yeah, I don't know if I would like that.
yeah,
I think that might be kind of weird, but
yeah.
um yeah, so that is my pick of the week. Um but with my AirPods died in the middle of it, so a little bit of a delay. But Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that this weekend I just, sometimes you just have one of those like little moments that's like a big moment, you know what I mean? That like you're like, I
Mm-hmm.
know this is gonna be a big moment that I'm gonna anyway. So basically, my family's been doing like a monthly get together where like we all like gather at someone's house and do dinner and just hang out, whatever. So we were all at my aunt's house and everyone's having a great time. So we stayed out later than, my daughter is normally up. So she's never seen like lightning bugs. Like she saw them once like 2 weeks ago, but she was like on her way to bed and wasn't really like grasping the moment. But we're like like staying outside, so like she's seeing them a bunch and everything. And like I look over and like my dad's over there with my daughter and my nephew and like showing them like how to catch fireflies, and they're like talking about them and like they're just like so excited and like the happiness on their face. And then I remember like catching fireflies with my dad when I was little, and so now he's like catching it with them, and it's just like this super sweet like moment that you're just like, as cheesy as it is, it's just like, this is what life's all about, It's like these are like the little
Mm-hmm.
moments that you're just like, yeah. And it's also because like we did just move back like 6 months ago. I'm like, like I'm just so happy that we're here to like get to have these moments now. Cause I'm like, we almost didn't. Like we almost would have lived in a different state and, continued seeing everyone every few years. And of course those moments happen, but it's like now they can happen all the time. And it's just like this
Mm-hmm.
like wonderful little relationship that they built with each other. And anyway, yeah, so it was just very sweet and very sentimental. And yeah, that was my perk of the week. Fireflies.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those moments, it's the
Hmm.
little moments in life that make,
Yes.
you know, all that. But that's fun. Little memories they'll keep having as they
Hmm.
grow up. So,
Yeah, exactly.
but if you want to tell us your thoughts on this case,
Yes.
about your little moments in life, about
Mhm.
your brew fest, about your favorite weird sours, maybe, I
Oh
don't know,
yeah,
weird
tell us that.
beers,
Yeah.
different beers, whatever. You can do so on all of our platforms that are listed in the bio. And if you want to just be on the elevated elite VIP program, you can go to patreon.com/caffeinated crimes. So there we have monthly bonuses, we have like hangouts, gifts, Discord access, just a lot of extra perks and just like a little extra. And you can be donating to your favorite local business, us,
Yes.
in your ears every week. But yeah.
And if you feel so inclined and would love to, if you cannot donate your money, what you can donate is a little 5-star review on Apple
Mm-hmm.
Podcast, on Spotify, on anything that lets you like give a star rating and say that we're wonderful and you love us. It is very much appreciated because that helps kind of boost up our visibility so we can have more people excited to hear us. And again, if you guys have not written to CrimeCon yet, telling them that you want us to be on Podcast Row, please do so. Let them know it's in
Mm-hmm.
Orlando in September. Please send them all of the hey, we want them because they're great.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
that would be
do that.
nice.
And I did see in an email they're out of the VIP ones, but it didn't say they were out of all of them.
Okay.
So I think there are still tickets if you want to come.
All right. Cool.
But I don't think there's any room left in the hotel. You're gonna have to stay at a different one.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.